So someone asked me this dating question on Instagram the other day, and I thought it was such a good question because I have not only received this question from a bunch of other people, but I've experienced it myself. So what this person asked was, they said how to get guys to ask more questions in the beginning of the dating process. Do I tell them? Is it just a sign of a lack of chemistry? Lots of guys do this, so I feel it's just something they aren't good at. But what do we do about it? So I loved this question, and my first response was to give like the thoughts that I have right off the top of my head, but I also wanted to ask the men if they had any input. And what they said actually gave me so much insight. So I want to share all of that with you in this video. I want to help the women to know what to do when you're in these situations where the conversations feel kind of one-sided, help the men to understand what it is the women are experiencing and provide some insight, and to just really give some solutions on both sides as to what to do to make this an even smoother, better dating experience. So if you don't already know me, my name is Brianna. I am the author of the book Single and Standing, which is basically a user's manual on how to navigate singleness, the struggles, the ups and the downs, how to thrive in that season. But I also share a lot of my own journey and even how I journeyed from singleness into meeting the man who is now my husband. So that book is just packed full of so much helpful information to help you navigate singleness and dating and finding that relationship that you ultimately want. I also run an Instagram page, Single and Standing, so you can find me over there. All these things will be linked down below. Okay, so back to the question. So I had asked the guys on Instagram, guys, why do you think it is that this happens? And one response in particular stood out to me. So most of the responses were similar to what I already thought. Like, guys are nervous and they want to make a good impression, and we can understand that because on both sides, like, nervousness is a huge thing that can impede us acting like our best normal selves on dates. But one of the things that this man said that really stood out to me was this. So he said, but if we tell you about us, it gives you info to decide if you want to move forward or not. And the reason I thought that was so insightful was because it highlighted to me a significant difference between the way men think about things and the way women think about things. So what he's saying is coming from the man's point of view, right? And this makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Basically, you're a man, you go into a date and you say, all right, I'm going to give them all the facts and all the details. At the end of the date, they'll know if what I've provided them is information enough to have them move forward or if they'd like to cut it off. Makes a lot of sense. And to some extent, that's true. Like, the information you provide on a date is going to have a huge impact in how that woman perceives you, which is going to have a huge impact on if she wants to continue dating you. However, I think there's something very important missing here that is specifically more so for how women experience dating. So as women, yes, we want to know everything there is to know about the guy that we're getting to know or we're dating, but also women tend to pay a lot more attention to how they feel as they go on the date. So how do they feel in your presence? Women tend to want to feel interesting, pursued. We want to know that we're captivating, that we've caught your interest, that we're valuable, that we're worth your time and attention, right? So when you watch like a typical rom-com, this is what they're playing to, right? They have the guys that do these grand gestures and bring the flowers and so many over-the-top things. And it's not so much that women need over-the-top gestures as it is they're speaking to something that women love, and it's that feeling of being pursued by a man, that feeling of, wow, this man finds me so valuable that he's willing to do this for me. Even bringing flowers, it's not just that women love the flowers, it's the thought behind the flowers. It's that he's going after you, that he's interested in you. So in the beginning stages of dating, this is obviously going to be on a much, much smaller scale. But what's missing in these scenarios where the man isn't asking questions is that when the man sits there and talks about himself, but isn't taking the interest to ask about the woman feels this. So that means the woman leaves the date. And although she has all of these beautiful facts and figures about you, she walks away going, but I don't feel like he was interested in me. Like, but what about the things I want to share? What about the things that make me amazing? Like, there's this desire for the woman to be able to share with you. And obviously, that's on both ends. Both the men and women want to share. But I think that what the men might be missing sometimes is realizing that the woman's experience, when she goes on a date with you, how does she feel in your presence? Those feelings, what it's like for her to be around you, that matters just as much as how great of a catch you are. I remember in my early dating years, getting to know this one guy that had all of the checklist items, right? He had the prestigious career and all of the things that if somebody rolled out this checklist and said, oh, these are the things that you would want in a partner. Yes, they were there, green check marks. And from the outside looking in, so many people were excited about the potential of this relationship. Like, wow, look at all these great attributes that this person has. But somehow for me, in the relationship, I could see all of those things, but I still felt a sense of emptiness. I felt a lack of connection. And when it came down to it, I ultimately decided that despite all of these beautiful traits, I didn't feel like the relationship was a right fit. And looking back on it, I can say exactly why that was. It wasn't that as I got to know the guy, I discovered that he was a jerk. That wasn't the issue. It wasn't that as I got to know him, I just realized we're too different. Really, the core of what it was that, let's say we were out together, he would tell me all his stories and his things about him and the things that he's interested in. And that was great. You should do that on a date. But I remember specifically that when I would share, there would be a shift of maybe his eyes, rather than looking me in the eyes, they were kind of scanning above my head. And I always noticed, I was like, oh, wait, I think he's more interested in what the people behind me are doing. Like, is he missing out on something? Where are his friends going? What's happening over there? Or maybe a lot of glancing at the phone, and even just later on, not necessarily having that recall that we had previously talked about the things before. And all these things aren't to knock that specific guy. Everybody's trying their best in dating, trying to navigate things. It's to give you the example of how things can be beautifully aligned as far as your attributes and your traits. But if the woman doesn't feel seen and if she doesn't feel valued, that's going to hold a really heavy weight on her ability to actually connect with you, which for a woman is very, very important. So men, what would I say to do about this? Well, since I gave an example of, what not to do, my husband, the man that I'm married to right now, is fantastic at making me feel seen. So what this man will do is, aside from, now he's married to me, so he'll leave me notes around the house, he'll cook me dinner, he'll do so many nice kind things. But let's go back to maybe more the basics of what you can do. If I go to work all day and I come home, he'll ask me, how was your day? And as I share, he'll ask me more questions like, oh, is that normal? Oh, so what's that like? There's always a curiosity about me. There's a curiosity about the things I'm experiencing. And I remember early on in our dating really taking note of this, that he was different than a lot of guys in this area. If I shared something with him as far as a detail about me or even a fun fact, 5 conversations down the road, he would reference it because he actually listened to what I said. He actually retained the information about me because he found me interesting enough to actually hold on to the information that I shared with him. He found me interesting enough to ask me more questions about myself. So This is what I would say for you men on the most basic level, right? Is what this woman is asking for. She said, "Why do men not seem to ask a lot of questions?" That's the thing that she's looking for. And I would say the deeper layer of what she's looking for is, why doesn't it feel like they're taking an interest in me? Why aren't we able to connect? So men, that's a secret that I want to give you right there. Take an interest in the woman right from the very beginning. Ask her questions about herself. Dig a little deeper. She gives you some information on a hobby of hers. Find out, how did she get into that hobby? What is it she likes so much about that hobby, right? There's always more you can find out about the things that she shares. It's not that you're trying to go into it like an interview where you ask her 100 questions, but just mutual conversation, right? She asks you something about you, you share, and then you simply say, "How about you? Have you had experiences with that?" And then maybe ask her some questions about her. I feel like, men, it might seem like the more productive way of dating is to go in and present yourself well, which it is. But I think you'll go even further if you go in making sure that her experience is well, that she feels seen and valued, that she enjoys her time, that she feels respected and cared for. Because all of the details about you that are important, she will know. She'll make sure she finds them out. She will ask you questions. She will look things up on Facebook, whatever it is she has to do, the information she needs to know if you're a good catch or not, she will find. So that information might be a little bit easier for her to get a hold of, and she will find a way around that. But the experience is something that only you can create. So focus on dating in a way that creates a beautiful experience for the woman, and that actually shows her that you're interested in her as well as just wanting her to be interested in you. So that's what I would say for the men. For the women, first of all, extend grace to the men, because honestly, in a lot of situations, if they're doing this where they're just talking and talking about themselves, really the underlying motive is that they are interested in you. It feels like they're not interested because they're not asking questions or doing the things that would take an interest in you. But deep down, they are interested in having a relationship with you, and they're hoping you want to have a relationship with them, which is why they're laying it all out on the table. So definitely start with grace towards them, and realize that, how somebody shows up at the beginning of their dating when there's nervousness is very often going to be very, very different than how they show up when they're actually comfortable with you. So this might take a little bit of time just to see how things go. But one thing I will say is that back when I was facing this struggle a lot in dating, I talked to my counselor about it. And the suggestion she gave me was to use this as an opportunity to practice communicating your wants and likes. Because we all know that's something that's going to be very helpful to us when we're actually in a marriage, is being able to say, "Hey, I want this," or "I like this," right? And actually being able to express where we're lacking. So, an example she gave was to say something like, "Hey, you know what? I love hearing so much about X, Y, and Z," or "I've loved learning so much about you. I was wondering if there's anything else you want to know about me." And just coming right out and asking if there's more they want to know about you. And also, even just as they bring up something in conversation, being like, "Oh, that's amazing. This is an experience I had," and see if they're able to then tune into the experience that you had. Because the reality is, some guys just need time to warm up. Some guys might just not really be relationally ready to be able to have that kind of conversation. So if you are expressing to the guy, sort of this idea of, "Is there stuff you want to know about me? And here's some things I'd like to share with you about me." And if he kind of takes off on that, and you find that you can start having mutual back and forth conversations, and that when you speak, he's actually engaging in what you're saying, then those are great signs, and hopefully it'll just get better from there. I would say if you do take those little steps, or you do bring yourself up and you notice that person's not really paying attention, or they turn it right back to them, or it's a consistent pattern of they always talk about them and all the conversations are about them, those guys might just not be a good fit yet. So those are the things that I would like to reflect on with this. I would love to know what you think, men and women. Do you agree with me? Do you have suggestions for the opposite gender? Like, is there something you have that you think could actually help someone else out? Be like, hey, if you did this on a date, I would love it. Share in the comments. Let's talk about it. I would love to know what you think about this. Also, it helps me so much if you take a second to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It'll make it so that way I can continue to create videos like this and that you don't miss out on any future videos that I do create. So I hope that you have a fantastic time with dating. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions, and I look forward to talking about this more. Bye.